Coming up on this Thursday edition of Daybreak, a bullet train service linking Seoul with the city of Gwangju and the rest of the southwest starts operations. President Park Geun-hye says the new rail line will spur regional development. US President Barack Obama authorizes new sanctions to penalize cyber criminals that undermine US security and financial stability. The order comes a matter of months after Washington blamed North Korea for the Sony Pictures hack. Plus, the US says negotiations over Iran's nuclear program will continue until at least Thursday morning, 2 days after the original deadline. Daybreak begins now. Hello and thanks for joining us. To our viewers around the world, it's 6 a.m. on Thursday, April 2nd here in Seoul. I'm Mark Broome and you're tuned in to Daybreak. And we start with another advance in Korea's highly acclaimed rail network. 6 years since breaking ground, bullet trains that slash travel time from Seoul to Korea's southwestern city of Gwangju have officially started operations this morning. President Park Geun-hye celebrated the opening of the latest KTX line on Wednesday, saying it will help to spur regional development. Our Chae-sun starts us off.
President Park Geun-hye hopped on a high-speed train running on a new line stretching through Korea's southwest. The 182 kilometers of tracks starting from Osong will shorten travel time from Seoul to the southwestern city of Gwangju to about 90 minutes. President Park said this latest railway will help the local economy grow and spur social and cultural cooperation in the region.
호남 고속철도 건설에 따른 25조 원의 경제적 파급 효과와 함께 전북, 광주 등 지역별 창조경제 혁신 센터를 중심으로 활발한 인적 교류와 기업 이전을 촉진하게 될 것입니다.
Since operations began in 2004, Korea's bullet train, the KTX, has only been able to travel at half its speed in the southwestern region because tracks were unfit for a high-speed locomotive. Now only 3 hours away from the Incheon International Airport, President Park said Gwangju could develop into a global city along the west coast. In line with this, plans to increase KTX services from Incheon Airport to Gwangju during its hosting of the 2015 Summer Universiade in July were also announced. There are also expectations that the high-speed railroad will promote advanced rail technology around the world. In fact, joining President Park on Wednesday's test ride was a visiting Malaysian transport official. Both Malaysia and Singapore have shown interest in Korea's rail technology and plan to place an order later this year for a $22 billion high-speed railway project to link their countries. The second phase of Korea's high-speed rail project, connecting Gwangju to the southern city of Mokpo, meanwhile, remains in limbo as the finance and transport ministries differ on the route. Chae-sun, Arirang News.
Now, the US defense contractor that developed America's anti-ballistic missile defense system, better known as THAAD, has reportedly been providing information about the system to the Korean government. A representative of Lockheed Martin told the New York Times that it has been supplying information to Korea and the US as there's a possibility Seoul might purchase the system. This comes amid controversy over whether Seoul will let the US set up THAAD in Korea as part of its so-called pivot to Asia strategy, a move China and Russia see as a threat to their national security. While the issue is not on the official agenda, there's growing speculation THAAD will come up in talks when US Secretary of Defense Ashton Carter visits Seoul next week. US President Barack Obama has issued an executive order to authorize his government to sanction foreign hackers who plan or carry out cyber attacks on the US. In a statement on Wednesday, he granted the Secretary of the Treasury, the Attorney General and the Secretary of State permission to impose sanctions involving diplomatic engagement, trade policy tools and law enforcement mechanisms. Obama said that cyber threats pose one of the most serious economic and national security challenges to the U.S., and the new program will help counter such malicious threats. In January, the U.S. imposed new sanctions on North Korea after a cyber attack on Sony Pictures. Now, there were hopes for dialogue between the two Koreas in April as the joint military drills between South Korea and the US come to a close towards the end of the month. But now, many are doubting that possibility, with several factors stirring up tensions. For more on the prospects for talks, Hwang Sang-hee reports.
Hopes for fresh momentum in inter-Korean ties are fading. The joint military training drills end on April 24th, but the two Koreas have another issue to resolve before then. With April 10th, the payday for North Korean workers at the Kaesong Industrial Complex fast approaching, the two countries will have to settle the ongoing wage tussle. North Korea is demanding a unilateral raise for its workers and a revision in regulations. South Korea says these issues must be settled through government-level talks. Seoul's Unification Ministry said Wednesday the issue is still in a deadlock.
There is no progress in discussions between the Kaesong Industrial District Management Committee and the North Korean government regarding the issue of a wage hike.
Pyongyang also warned of merciless action against Seoul if the country opens a UN office on North Korea's human rights situation. The field office was one of the recommendations made in a United Nations report published last year. Despite the threats, the office is expected to open in Seoul later this spring. Considering all these factors, experts say tension will remain high on the Korean peninsula.
North Korea will call for a change in South Korea, and it's not likely for Pyongyang to offer any compensation to pave the way to dialogue.
3 South Korean detainees in North Korea are adding to tensions. Pyongyang recently said it is holding 2 South Koreans who it claims were spying on the regime, in addition to another man detained since late 2013. Experts say South Korea should be more active in seeking dialogue with North Korea for the release of the 3 detainees. They suggest dispatching an envoy to Pyongyang as a possible viable option. Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News.
The Korean government has vowed to take action in response to reports that Japan will renew claims to the country's easternmost islets of Dokdo. Japan's Kyodo News Agency reports that Tokyo's foreign ministry plans to assert sovereignty over Dokdo in their 2015 white paper, which is scheduled to be released in early April. On Wednesday, the Korean Foreign Ministry reiterated its stance that, by history, geography and international law, Dokdo is Korean territory. Pardon me. The ministry warned that it would firmly deal with any further territorial provocations from Japan. The man who attacked US Ambassador to South Korea Mark Lippert last month in Seoul has been charged with attempted murder. Kim Ki-jong was also indicted Wednesday on charges of assault on a foreign envoy and obstruction of business. Prosecutors say his crime was intentional and carefully planned. Kim earlier told investigators that he targeted Lippert to express his opposition to the ongoing joint South Korea-US military drills. Whether Kim also violated the national security law banning acts that promote North Korean ideology is still being investigated. A trial for Kim could open as early as next week. Nearly 1 year has passed since the Sewol ferry disaster, one of Korea's worst maritime accidents that killed more than 300 people. And on Wednesday, the level of compensation for the victims was finalized. The Maritime Ministry says bereaved families of the 250 student victims will receive over $740,000 each. Slightly over $1 million will be given to each of the families of the teachers who perished on the ferry. The other adult victims will receive amounts depending on their age and income level. The ministry carefully added that the compensation is aimed at helping the families attempt to get back to their day-to-day lives.
We start before the sun rises to bring you the latest stories out of Korea. We also lead the way with important global coverage. Stay on the pulse of what is happening with Daybreak.
Now, Korea's consumer prices grew at the slowest pace in nearly 16 years last month. The latest data raises one of the biggest warning flags yet about the increasing deflationary pressures in the economy amid sluggish output and weak demand at home. Our Park Geun-hye has the details.
Despite an oil price rebound recently, global crude prices have been on a sharp overall downward trend in the past year, providing relief for drivers here in Korea.
I used to drive around 300 kilometers by filling in about $50 worth of oil, but these days I drive around 400 kilometers.
And as oil prices fall, so does the country's inflation. Statistics Korea data shows that last month consumer prices rose at the slowest pace since July 1999, growing a mere 0.4% from a year ago. If we exclude tobacco prices, which doubled recently, the inflation rate would have actually been below zero. Now, this, coupled with a fragile recovery momentum, is raising concerns of deflation. Korea's traditional growth engine exports dropped for the third straight month in March, while production in the mining and manufacturing sectors dropped nearly 5% in February from the previous year.
The pace of recovery is not strong enough compared to growth efforts, like the central bank trimming the key rate to a record low, the government introducing stimulus measures, and the positive effect coming from low oil prices.
The finance ministry tried to dismiss concerns of increasing deflationary pressures, saying the core inflation, which excludes volatile oil and agricultural products, was up 2.1% from a year ago. That, however, also marks the slowest growth since December last year. Based on those figures, experts say it's likely the central bank will lower its growth forecast of 3.4% for this year when it releases its new outlook next week. Gwangju, Arirang News.
Now, the salary gap between executive-level company officials and their employees continues to widen here in Korea. The biggest gap has one CEO making 142 times the salary of a rank-and-file worker. Our Kim Min-ji reports.
It's no surprise there is a significant difference in the salaries earned by company CEOs and employees. But how wide is that gap in Korea? Market researcher Evan Guide says executive salaries at the nation's top 30 companies by market cap exceed the average employee income by as much as 142 times. The company with the highest discrepancy is Samsung Electronics. CEO Shin Jong-gun's annual salary came to over $13 million last year, more than double from a year ago. The average Samsung employee salary was almost $110,000. Second on the list was Hyundai Steel. Jung Mong-gu, chairman of Hyundai Group, pocketed more than $10 million in wage and severance pay from the affiliate, while employees earned an average of about $80,000, which is 133 times less. Other companies with large discrepancies include LG Chem, Hyundai Motor, and POSCO. On average, CEO incomes were almost 36 times higher than average employee salaries. The findings come after the Financial Supervisory Service revised a regulation in 2013 that requires companies to reveal the salary details of executives who earn more than $450,000 annually. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
The sign-up period for joining the China-led Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank has come to a close now, with more than 40 countries on board to become founding members. Two glaring absentees from the list are the United States and Japan. For more on where the AIIB goes from here, our Shin Se-min reports.
A total of 46 countries lined up to become the founding members of the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, an institution that aims to help low-income regions with the necessary funds for large development projects. The four largest European economies, Germany, UK, France, and Italy, as well as Australia, Brazil, and South Korea, have applied to become members. But the U.S. and Japan opted out for the March 31st deadline, with Washington citing concerns over the AIIB's governing standards and whether it'll negatively affect U.S.-based institutions like the World Bank. Japanese officials also said that the country will wait and watch how China guarantees fair governance at the bank. So far, the AIIB has confirmed $100 billion in capital, with the initial subscribed capital at around $50 billion. Proposed by China in 2013, the bank is seen as China's attempt to take on a more prominent role in the global financial system. Experts question whether the bank will successfully grant loans, and they'll be watching to see which countries and what types of companies benefit from the institution. The final list of founding members will be confirmed on April 15th, and the completion of signing and negotiations will take place in June. The bank is expected to be set up by the end of this year. 신세민, Arirang News.
An ancient Korean artifact has made its way back home from the United States. A homecoming ceremony for the Royal Seal of Dokjeong was held on Wednesday at the National Palace Museum of Korea. Officials from the Seattle Art Museum were there to donate the relic to Korea's Cultural Heritage Administration as part of a voluntary exchange. The seal's creation was ordered by King Seongjong during the Joseon dynasty in honor of his father Dokjeong, who died young without ever reaching the throne. The seal had been kept at the Seattle Museum since 1963 after it was donated by a collector, but how the seal ended up in the US remains unclear to this day. Time now for a look through the global headlines we're following this Thursday morning from Seoul. For that, we connect to Eunice Kim, standing by at the news center. Good morning, Eunice.
And good morning to you, Mark. No breakthrough yet. The Iranian nuclear talks are poised to stretch into yet another day as negotiators are stuck over key details in what is now being called the framework understanding. A lot riding on reaching an agreement, and patience is running thin.
That they need to exhibit political will and flexibility in order to move forward. Iran has exhibited that political will. Iran has shown its readiness to engage with dignity.
But if we are in a situation where we sense that the talks have stalled, then yes, the United States and the international community is prepared to walk away, because we've been very clear about what kinds of commitments we expect. And we've been clear about those kinds of commitments for in excess of a year.
Talks did continue into overtime as Washington said it was willing to keep going as long as progress was being made toward the finish line. Secretary of State John Kerry will stay in Lausanne at least through Thursday morning, even as his counterparts from France, Russia, and China have already left the Swiss city. Earlier, Russia's Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said a general agreement on all key aspects had been agreed upon, while Britain's Foreign Secretary Philip Hammond had said some key issues still needed to be worked through. Disagreements still remained over the conditions of lifting UN sanctions and Iran's future atomic research, according to reports. Turning now to the Germanwings crash, the head of parent company Lufthansa says it will take a long time to determine for certain the string of events that ultimately led to last week's devastating crash that killed all 150 on board. Carsten Spohr and Germanwings managing director Thomas Winkelmann made a visit to a memorial near the crash site to pay respects to the victims. As you see they laid a wreath at the site in the village of Leven. Spohr said there was not a single hour he and his colleagues don't think about the terrible accident and were just very, very sorry beyond words. He did not answer questions as to what he had known about the mental health of co-pilot Andreas Lubitz, who is suspected of deliberately crashing that plane. And over to Greece. A deal with the debt-laden European country can be reached by the end of April. That was the answer European Council President Donald Tusk gave reporters on Tuesday in Madrid, ducking questions of whether the EU had a plan B in place. He described the situation in Greece as under control and that he was focused on plan A. Athens has submitted its most comprehensive reform plan yet, as it remains intent on striking a deal with its lenders.
And a good Thursday morning to you all as we kick things off with the 2015 Summer Universiade, which will kick off later this year in Gwangju. And with the event about 5 months away now, President Park Geun-hye herself is making sure everything's on the right track. Now, according to an official, President Park Geun-hye inspected the preparations for the 2015 Summer Universiade in order to make sure that the city can successfully host the event. And with about 20,000 athletes, officials, and press from 170 countries coming together from July 3rd to the 14th, event organizers will make sure everything is done on time as the city becomes the third Korean city to host a Universiade event. Now we're well into the new 2015 LPGA season, and starting on Thursday U.S. time, the first LPGA major of the season will tee off with the 2015 ANA Inspiration. Now a brand new tournament name, but the familiar faces of the LPGA will vie for the top prize as Lexi Thompson looked to repeat last year's performance when she became the second youngest major winner. But with Lydia Ko on fire this season, she may just be the favorite to jump into Poppy's Pond, a tradition amongst the winners of the major event. Meanwhile, Park Geun-hye, who trails Ko in the World Golf Rankings, looked to pull off another major victory en route to taking back her #1 ranking from the teenager. Kim Hyo-ju, Kim Se-young, and Chang Ha-na. Now, these are some of the names that are currently in the LPGA but started their career in the KLPGA. And thanks to their success, the KLPGA is seeing a huge rise in popularity. And with that, for the first time in history, the KLPGA Media Day took place on Wednesday, with a brand new season teeing off a week from now. And to showcase a new look for the KLPGA, they revealed a brand new emblem, using the colors red for passion, blue for sportsmanship, and yellow for vision. Now the big question remains, who will be the next Kim Hyo-ju in 2015? Now the last time the Samsung Hwaja Blue Fangs in the Men's V-League failed to win the championship title was back during the 2006-2007 season. And since then, they were pretty much unstoppable until OK Savings Bank took the first 2 games of the championship series and went after the sweep on Wednesday night. And just like the first 2 games, OK Savings Bank dominates offensively and defensively as they take the first 2 sets 25-19 and 25-19 once again before the Blue Fangs take the 3rd set. By the 4th set, despite a late rally from the Blue Fangs, it's Robert Landy Simone and the OK Savings Bank who take the 4th set for a 3-1 victory and their first V-League championship title. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Good morning. It looks to be another rainy day for the entire nation, and up here in Seoul, we'll start off the morning under partly sunny skies, then it will gradually getting cloudier with rain clouds moving in, and will start to rain from the midday, and it's likely to rain till early tomorrow morning, and a heavier precipitation is expected this time than the ones that we just had. So northern parts of Gyeonggi and Gangwon province could see up to 60 millimeters, while the most parts will have have somewhere between 5 to 40 millimeters. So be sure to have an umbrella handy before heading out this morning. But despite the rain, the daytime highs will be warmer than yesterday. So let's take a closer look at the readings for today. The morning low here in Seoul will start out at 9. Then later on will peak at 19, while Daegu and Gwangju top out at 21, and Busan makes it to 17 this afternoon. Now let's see how other regions are looking. It seems like Jeju Island and Daejeon should see a high of 24 and 22, while Dokdo tops out at 11. Well, that's all for Korea, and here's international weather for viewers around the world.
Well, that's going to do it for now. Korea Today is coming up at the top of the hour. Have a great day. Goodbye.